Welcome to PlainPlane Talk, a forum for people interested in all aspects of making the woodworking industry more successful. Today's fourth episode is titled Are Scalability and Flexibility Mutual Exclusive? This is a continuation of my discussions with Joseph Baggett, President of Innovative Wood Process Solutions, and Don Shultz, Principal of Moran Associates. My name is Michael Gross, and I'm your host.
One question I would like to pose to both of you is scalability and flexibility inherently impossible, or how can you square the two of them?
I think scalability and flexibility cannot be mutually exclusive. I think that the key to running a successful factory is that it has to be flexible, because even if you are producing standard or semi-custom products, just the nature of our work, schedules change daily, and to be able to respond to general contractors move their ship dates every day. Architects ask for stuff early. Buildings are completed later than planned. I mean, there's always this stuff that's floating around. Materials don't show up on time. People don't show up for work. So the idea of being able to manage the variability, not just in the schedule, but in demand and in the product itself and in the business process. I think that what I see is that many companies have picked one workflow and have built their business around one workflow, when they actually ignore the fact that based on part commonality, they could have two or maybe even three workflows that were one-off, small batch flow and a larger batch flow. But I think that so being flexible, if you build a business that is scalable but not flexible, I don't think you'll ever be able to fully scale it. When you look at the certainly there's these products that are 100% custom. They're one-off. I'm going to design it. I'm going to build it. I'm going to ship it. I'm never going to make it again. But so much of the work that we do, if you think about the Pareto rule, 80% of our volumes coming from 20% of the product variety. And until businesses really analyze what's going through their plant, they're never going to understand their part usage. And it's not the part number. It's the attributes of the part. All of our doors, for instance, cabinet sides, those things typically, irrespective of size, you've got some common engineering to those. And so the commonality doesn't apply to the actual physical component. It applies to the digital model. And so I think all of this for me is about thinking about the product engineering in a very modular, very parametric way, but also to think of the plant and the plant process in very much the same way.
It's a great question. Everybody in a wood business, right, except for the one-off, say we're going to do this, everybody's looking to scale, right? And scaling down is just as important as scaling up.
Yeah.
So in building a scalable model, right, you really have to look back at where is the accelerator and the decelerator, right? If you have theoretical capacities and you're scheduling, then your scheduler and your scheduling system, hopefully your software, right, it becomes the accelerator and the decelerator. If you've really put brains into it, it does. Second thing, right? So let's talk about the flexibility. that Don was referring to. So we had a large furniture client that had an ERP system, and the MRP didn't have the visibility of on-hand material whenever they were scheduling. So they were scheduling chairs and sofas and side tables without the knowledge of whether or not they had the material on hand to actually complete it. What they did have was other material on hand that they could fill up the capacity of the plant with, and they could have eaten up their backlog faster if they would have been able to do that, right? So flexibility on the front end of the schedule.
Yep.
So let's go back to, if you have the information, you can be flexible, right, to a certain level. If you don't have the information, you can't be. And so building this scalable model and having the flexibility is much of the same information and the same questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and that's really, I think, Joseph, a very important insight. That it's the ability to have access to the data so that we can sort it, we can analyze it, and we can turn it into information that helps us make these decisions about, well, if we batch, well, first of all, do I have the materials, and can I, what's the impact on output or the plant load for this week if I batch it this way compared to what it would look like if I batched it another way. And I think I most of the companies that I work with and have worked with over the years are not able to do finite scheduling. All they do is they get the production people in a room. They look at what's on the schedule and they say, well, first their first sort is, what's the dollar volume of the work that's supposed to ship this week or next week, whatever the planning horizon is, and they're using the gross amount rather than some more finite production information about, well, I've got this many cabinets or this many tables or whatever the product is. They're not looking at it with a level of granularity that tells them what is possible. But the other night, the companies that are really well managed, the companies that have effective information management tools all the way from the point of design or the point of sale through installation, what percentage of the industry is that?
So I'm going to apply some statistics to what you just said, Don. So there's 30 to 40,000 theoretical woodworking folks here in the U.S., right? So 3% times 30, let's just do 35,000, right? That's 1,050 manufacturers or fabricators here in the U.S., right? That are kind of at that level of process automation, right? With their information. And it's a good thing, because the fact is there's so many that this applies. And so I'm going to say one of the underlying challenges, right? They're underlying unexpressed concerns or fears, because this information, this ability, software, machines, is available to everybody.
Right.
And so the concern is that solving this information bottleneck through software, making hard decisions, right? Either it's going to cost too much, it's going to take too long, or that the culture and group of people would not be able to sustain it, or it would cause them to make significant changes that are uncomfortable. And it's really important, because these things are underlying. If you really go through a journey and ask these questions that we're talking about, these are underlying things that really affect how these questions are answered.
Correct.
Within an organization.
Yeah.
Like my dad's huge culture development architect, right? He's got a master's degree in organizational development. And the average woodworking shop or manufacturer think that either culture is not for them. Either A, that it costs too much, they're not big enough to really realize the results, or it's going to cause them to change something that's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That said, is all these things that we're talking about drive value every day.
Yep.
In the dealer's choice situation that you alluded to, where you do production scheduling and it's all done by the dollar amount, you're not using any type of theoretical capacity to push that dollar amount.
Yep.
Okay, that mystery of what that could be is lost, and so I want to tie that back to the question that I asked first, right? About what drives the most, what information would create the most value for manufacturing.
Yep.
Being able to intelligently schedule.
Yep.
And to use your largest theoretical bottleneck and to have visibility within those discussions are less of a discussion, right? Of what are we going to get through? How are we going to do it? And it's more of a discussion of how do we drive the scalable capacity of that factory to get out the most dollar amount on a regular basis, right?
Yep.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
And who is driving it, right? I mean, if you look at in the past, it was more about reapplying trade knowledge and experience. And what we learned today in the discussion is there is an abundance of data and information, and it becomes more important to manage this information to service a goal, right? I mean, machines get more sophisticated. We have real-time feedback from our software systems. Now, it's not so much reapplying a certain method, but more making sense of all of this information.
This brings us to the end of today's episode. Please join us at our LinkedIn group called PlainPlane Talk, or visit our PlainPlane Talk channel on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you soon.